سيد الوصيين علي بن أبي طالب عليه وعلى آبائه وأبنائه المعصومين أفضل وأزكى صلوات المصلين. We extend our deepest condolences on these nights to the Imam of our time, Al-Hujjat al-Mahdi, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all the tawfiq to revive these nights and to be recorded in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, true followers of the Commander of the Faithful. And inshallah He will never separate between us and between the Ahlul-Beyt until we meet Him and until after we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in paradise. Before we begin, inshallah, I'd like to request all of you to recite Al-Mubarakat al-Fatiha for all of your marhumeen and all of our marhumeen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وآلاف التحية والسلام على نبينا نبي الرحمة محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. والبراءة من أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله، يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء، ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم وأمنا من لجأ إلى حصنكم، وفاز من والاكم وسار بنهجكم، فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. جاء عن سيدنا ومولانا أمير المؤمنين وسيد الوصيين عليه السلام أنه قال: ليكن آثر الناس عندك من أهدى إليك عيبك، ليكن آثر الناس عندك من أهدى إليك عيبك. In Ghurar al-Hikam by Al-Amudi al-Tamimi, he reports a hadith or a maxim of wisdom in which he attributes to the Commander of the Faithful, peace and blessings be upon him and his progeny, in which our Imam says, let the most favored of all people be the one who guides you to your flaws. Some people are very sensitive to critique as it provokes their insecurities. And sometimes it makes them feel unworthy. Critique for some people is something that lowers their self-esteem. Although the purpose of critique is not to be as such. But for some people, the wrong perception of critique and the mindset they have in terms of receiving critique is such that it is always taken in a negative sense. So the question is, how do we deal with critique? People are going to criticize what we do and what we say. And this is an ongoing thing. There's no escape from critique. Sometimes critique is constructive and sometimes it's destructive. And there's no way we can put a tape on people's mouths, and if we can't put a tape on their minds and how they think of us and how they see us and how they perceive us. So critique is a human thing. It's not something we can escape. People always make remarks, be it positive or negative, about what we believe in, about what we say, what we do, what we wear, everything that revolves around our lives. So what is the Islamic method of dealing with critique? How should we adjust the settings of our mind to receive critique in a way that does not provoke our insecurities and does not cause us that low self-esteem? Inshallah, I will digest this topic and examine it by presenting 5 types of critique. Usually the critique in general stems from 5 grounds or is based on 5 grounds. And these 5 grounds are religious, expertise, cultural, personal, emotional. And I'll explain what each of these mean. In our minds, if we understand the difference between these 5 grounds or 5 types of critique, we will place the critique that we receive in the grounds or in the place that it belongs in. And if we have prepared our minds that if this type of critique falls under this category, then it should not be a critique that should provoke our insecurities. So it's a matter of adjusting our minds, and I'll explain as we go what I mean by this. It may not be clear from the start, but I want your undivided attention, inshallah, so that we can mention examples and clarify these points. The first of these bases of critique is what is called religious critique. Somebody approaches me and says to me, for example, what you're doing needs to be adjusted, needs to be fixed. Based on what? It says based on religious teachings. What you have done today is unlawful, and you shouldn't be doing that. Or what you're doing is not in line with the Islamic ethics and the Islamic teachings. We call this type of critique religious critique. And this critique is based on a fundamental duty in Islam that is incumbent upon Muslims, and that is al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahyu 'anil munkar, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse 71 of chapter 9 says, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. The believing men and believing women are allies of one another. They enjoin what is right and they forbid what is wrong. So when a person comes to me and their critique stems from Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar, I should appreciate that critique. Number one, because they are practicing a duty that is obligatory upon them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're executing this obligation that is incumbent upon them. They don't mean to offend me. They actually have come to help me, to guide me back to the right path. And number two, we as mu'mineen, as believers, as followers of Ahlul-Beyt alayhim salam, have to understand that because we are not infallible, because we are fallible, we are subject to sin, we are prone to making mistakes and error, it's good to have that reminder between time and time by our respected brothers and respected sisters. It should be like when someone comes to you and says, fix your shirt, for example. Your shirt is not put on right. You appreciate that kind of remark, because they don't mean to really offend you, or they don't mean to make you look bad, but rather they want you to look good. So when somebody does Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar, they want us to look good in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They come to us and they say, look, this act of yours, this behavior, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you act, this needs to be adjusted. Of course, we have to have a good way to do Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar. There needs to be a very kind approach to Al-Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al Munkar. Sometimes people are sensitive to it because of how some people practice it. So we have to give people also the right to be treated in a nice way, even when they are asked to do that which is wajib and to avoid that which is haram. There's a beautiful hadith, and all the ahadith that are attributed to Ahlul-Bayt are beautiful. And this one is attributed to our fifth Imam, Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. Abu Ja'far Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. The kunya of our beloved Imam al-Baqir is Abu Ja'far. And the other Abu Ja'far from the Ai is our ninth Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam. He's known as Abu Ja'far al-Thani. Abu Ja'far al-Baqir alayhi salam, he tells one of his companions, he admonishes and advises him. He says to him, and this is reported in Tuhaf al-Aqul by Ibn Shab al-Harrani, he says, وَإِن ذُمِمْتَ فَلَا تَجْزَعْ وَفَكِّرْ فِي مَا قِيلَ فِيكَ فَإِنْ عَرِفْتَ مِنْ نَفْسِكَ ما قيل فيك. يعني إذا عرفت أن الذي قيل فيك صحيح موجود فيك. فإن عرفت من نفسك ما قيل فيك فسقوطك من عين الله عز وجل عند غضبك من الحق أعظم عليك مصيبة مما خفت من سقوطك من أعين الناس. He says, when you are dispraised, do not be distressed, do not be saddened, but think. Oftentimes we become so defensive to critique that we're ready to respond, we're ready to attack, we raise our guards and we're ready to fight back. Hold on. Take a moment. What if what they're saying is right? Just think for a second. Somebody called me a liar. Okay, hold on. Before I respond, say, no, you're a liar, and your father's a liar, and your mother's a liar. And hold on a second. Maybe I am a liar. So let me think about it. Because I'm not a ma'soom, therefore I could be lying. So here, Imam says, think about what has been said to you. If it is true, be honest with yourself. بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا. We justify a lot. From day to night, if we use the same energy to fix, the same energy that we use to justify, we would reach very high ranks and high positions. We're very busy justifying, and this is our weakness, my dears, that we have to try to work on. Don't justify. Always the default is, yeah, I am wrong. See, the principle that we should follow as Muslims, as followers of Ahlul-Beyt, if I am in doubt about somebody else's behavior, the default is that no, their behavior is good. Give them the benefit of the doubt. But never give yourself the benefit of the doubt. When you're in doubt that you could be doing something wrong, don't say, Alhamdulillah, it's me, so I'm good. No. This is the danger. This is the way of Iblis, alayhi la'nah. You want to make sure that you say, you know what, by default, I am guilty until proven innocent. Between you and yourself, you are guilty until proven innocent. But others are innocent until proven guilty. If we follow this standard, then we would reach, inshallah, very high positions. So the Imam says, if it is true, then it will be more catastrophic for you to be disregarded by Allah than being disregarded by the people. You're afraid about your reputation and how you look. That's why you became so defensive. And therefore, that shouldn't be what upsets you. What upsets you needs to be that Allah is angry at you for what you have done. Some people, when it comes to receiving this type of critique, it is the most sensitive critique for them. They're willing to receive critique on anything, which we'll mention in a little bit. But here, if it is based on religious teachings, if it's based on Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahy al Munkar, they get really, really sensitive. To the point where they would insist on that sin just to not feel, the pride takes them so that they don't feel that they have to give in and apologize or show that they are wrong. They don't want to admit that they're wrong. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُ اتَّقِ اللَّهِ أَخَذَتْهُ الْعِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ فَحَسْبُهُ جَهَنَّمَ وَلَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. And when it said to him, be pious of Allah, pride in sin takes hold of him. Sufficient for him is hellfire. So this is the first type of critique. What is the critique here based on? Religious teachings. How should we adjust our minds to receive this critique? We should adjust our mind to put a okay, a positive check, green light. Allow this critique. When you program your mind, say whenever you hear a religious critique, green light. Let it through. Let it through and think about it and implement it and act accordingly. The second type of critique is what's called the expertise basis critique. It's the expert who's given you their evaluation. For example, I go to the doctor, they check my blood levels, my sugar and my cholesterol and so on and so forth. They tell you, you know what? You've been eating a lot, you've gained weight, You know, your cholesterol levels are high, you need to lower them. You need to eat this. They're criticizing me, but most of us appreciate that kind of criticism, right? Do you fight the doctor when he tells you this? No. You go out saying, thank you, doctor, I really appreciate it. What do you advise me? What should I do to lower my cholesterol? Do this, do this, do that. Why? Because you know that what he's telling you is in the best of your interest. If you have that mindset with respect to religious critique or criticism, then you would not be sensitive to it. If we adjust our minds to receive religious critique the same way we receive the expertise critique, then our life would be different. Go to the car shop and you say, you know, I need to inspect my car. I don't know if you guys do inspection in California, but some states have inspection. So I want you to inspect my car. Of course, inspection is meant to do what? To ensure safety for you and for others. And you don't want to drive a car that is not safe. So you bring that car and you give it to the mechanic and they inspect it and they take out about 9 issues with it. Do you usually go out and take a baseball bat from your trunk and hit the mechanic with it because that's what he says about your car? No. No, you would say thank you. You know, of course, it's not feasible or it's sometimes costly to have to fix the car, but you appreciate the fact that he was honest and that he pointed out what is wrong with your car to ensure safety. So usually we don't have a problem with expertise-based critique. The third one, and this one is important, cultural-based critique. And cultural-based critique means that someone criticizes you for violating a cultural norm. And we know culture varies between time and time. 2 points we have to highlight here. Number one, not every cultural norm is Islamically endorsed and acceptable. So if somebody criticizes you for a cultural norm that you didn't practice, which you know is not Islamic or violates an Islamic teaching, you can just dismiss that critique. You don't have to let it get to you. For example, in the West here, in a secular system, it is a culture that when you go for an interview, when you meet someone from the opposite gender at work, to greet them, you shake their hands. That's a culture. And if you don't shake your hands, some of them get offended. I personally, in my experience, if I put my hand over my chest and right away I give them that smile and say it is religious reasons, usually they understand. But some people give in and say, no, I don't want to say religion, and that fear. Don't be apologetic about your fundamentals and values. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of being a Muslim and being a follower of Ahlul-Beyt. You don't have to be apologetic when it comes to your values. Be clear about it. No, this is my values. You don't respect my values, that's your problem. But I will stick to my values. So here, when this culture says when you come in, you shake hands, that culture, you know, is what? Is in violation with an Islamic ruling. Because all fuqaha say it's not permissible for you to shake hands with the opposite gender who's in a mahram to you. So at this point, what happens? If somebody criticizes you at work, your boss, your coworkers, say, you know, you should have shaken hands. That wasn't right. You just violated this norm. You dismiss that type of criticism as if it doesn't exist. Why? Because it has no value. That criticism or that critique has no value. So therefore, don't let it get to you. But then the second type of cultural norms are that which there's no problem with in Islam. The way we greet people, the way we approach them, the way we speak to them, how we sit, how we do things in our center, at our home. Culture varies. Everyone has a specific culture that they live by, be it at work, be it at home. As long as that culture is not in violation with an Islamic principle or teaching or ruling, there's nothing wrong with it. So when somebody criticizes you for not implementing or not abiding by that permissible culture, you should take that into consideration. Although it's not wajib for you, it's not obligatory that you abide by that culture, but in order to maintain that harmony with other members of society, you should observe that culture. Because people that don't observe the culture that they belong to or that they live with usually will be considered by the rest of their peers, by the rest of the members of the community, as people who are not really respecting that culture. And it usually creates disharmony. So in order to avoid that, we should be taking that type of critique into consideration, and we should abide by these cultural norms to an extent, as long as it does not amount to violating an Islamic ruling or an Islamic value. This is what number? What number? 3. Ahsantum, very good. Number 4, personal preference or personal taste. Is everyone's taste the same? No. اختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم and so on and so forth. By the way, واختلاف ألسنتكم is referring to what? Language. But we also use the tongue to do what? To taste. So can we say that an inner layer of this verse refers to اختلاف أذواقكم? It's possible. It's possible. So here we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in a variety. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. Not just to know one another, but to acknowledge and accept one another. The difference is that we have in taste. Your favorite color is green, mine is blue, yours is purple, mine is pink. These things vary. Certain foods you like, certain foods I don't like. In fact, even when it comes to looks, one male could be very attractive to a female and vice versa, but that same male is not attractive to another female and vice versa. That's normal. A lot of times when things have to do with taste, we find that people get really offended. I wear a suit, for example, or a dress, and one of my friends comes and says, you know, I don't like it, I don't think it looks good. I shouldn't be offended by that. Why? Because that is their taste. Many times my wife, on a personal level, every time I bring her something, she says, you have the worst taste. Now, that used to bother me for a while, but then I thought, you know what? Why am I bothered? This is her taste and my taste. Her taste is that I have a bad taste, but it's okay. In the end, that is what she thinks. We don't have the same exact taste. So I'm the one who's not lucky for bringing a gift, and it happens to be not matching with her taste. So the taste aspect varies. So when someone criticizes you on the basis of taste, on the basis of dhawq, on the basis of personal preference, that also should be entering into the mind with an open heart, with an open mind. It should be let in without any heart and ill feelings. It's okay. It's okay. Don't take it personal when someone says, the way you appear is not appealing to me. It's not appealing to them, but it's appealing to somebody else. The way you sound is not appealing to me, but no, it's appealing to many other people. Had there been a united taste, we won't have any variety in the dress code that we see. We wouldn't have variety in the decor. We wouldn't have variety in anything that we have in life. The creativity that we see around us is because of that variety of taste, that variety of preference. The last one, number 5, is emotional-based critique. This is someone who has negative emotions, and on account of their negative emotions, they're putting out remarks against you. They have envy towards you, and they're speaking on that basis. They have hatred towards you, and they're speaking on that basis. They have arrogance, and they're speaking on that basis. That type of critique in Islam has zero value. It is not valuable and should not be listened to. If somebody's speaking and remarking or making negative comments about you that are based on their negative emotions, you should not let that get to you. It's not based on a religious foundation. They're not telling you, I am saying this about you because you are violating an Islamic law, and I am reminding you. They're not doing anything of that nature. They are not giving you an expertise opinion. They are not giving you a cultural norm that is accepted in Islam. They are not telling you about their taste. They are not. Therefore, if that is the case, you need to dismiss that kind of critique. It has no value. It has no value. The commander of the faithful, who we are commemorating tonight, as great as he was, of course for a Shia he's an infallible, but even for the non-Shia, those who read Amir al-Mu'mineen without biases, those who read Amir al-Mu'mineen without negative emotions, they read him as a human. They consider him to be one of the best humans that have walked on planet Earth. You find the Christians like George Cordah. He writes a 5-volume book, 5 volumes, and this is a Christian man. Ali, صوت العدالة الإنسانية. Ali, the voice of human justice. And you have those who write poetry in love of Ali ibn Abi Talib from the non-Muslims. Ali was able to attract all those who are not biased. But that same Ali, during his time, was called a kafir. Now that did not really bother Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? Why? Because he knew he wasn't a kafir. And this is what we need to learn from Ali ibn Abi Talib. As perfect as he was, he still received negative remarks. So don't assume that whenever you receive a negative remark by someone, again, if it's not based on religious values, it's not based on expertise, it's not based on taste, it's not based on cultural norms, if you know for a fact it's based on hiqd, on hatred, on envy, on arrogance, dismiss it like Ali ibn Abi Talib did. They would sit right in front of him, as we mentioned last night, they would say, kafirun ma afqaha. Kafir, but he's intelligent, but he's understanding. And you all know the story when he was struck and he was martyred. The people of Sham were wondering, how did he die? And they said he was killed in the masjid of Kufa. And the first thing that they said is what? How could he be killed in the masjid when he doesn't even pray to start with? This was the rumor that was going against Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Many other rumors were going against Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, but he never gave them any attention. Why? Because Ali is confident. Our beloved fifth Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, he says, فِيمَا قِيلَ فِيكَ. If what they have said about you is not true in your case, after you thought about it, they said, for example, you're a thief. And you thought about it, hold on, am I really a thief? Did I take anything from anybody? Did I usurp somebody's rights? And you really were honest with yourself and you came up with the conclusion that, no, alhamdulillah, I don't have a problem. He says, وَإِن كُنْتَ عَلَى خِلَافِ مَا قِيلَ فِيكَ فَثَوَابٌ اكْتَسَبْتَهُ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَتْعَبَ بَدَنَكَ. It is basically considered a reward that you have gained without exerting effort. Somebody says a remark about you and it's not true in your case, that's free thawab that have come your way. So you shouldn't be upset. Shouldn't be upset. Many people tend to take this very serious when I hear that somebody's talking about me. How many problems we have in different communities. Inshallah, this great community doesn't have that. But in many communities we find disunity and disharmony based on somebody says something about somebody else. And that somebody else became so upset about it that they created a huge problem and they boycott the community and that they have abandoned the community and so on and so forth. Whereas if they were to stop for a second and think, hold on. Is what they have said about me true? If it is true, then I need to work on myself. I shouldn't be blaming them. I am to be blamed. But if it's not true, then why should I take it serious? It's okay. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam faced so much oppression from the people of his time, to the extent that even when he gives them advice, they don't heed to it. To the point where he says, La ra'ya liman la yuta. He says, what's the value of an opinion when there's no obedience? He tells them, let's go and fight Muawiyah. Muawiyah is trying to destroy the Islamic State. They give him all kinds of excuses. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the most patient human being after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. On a night like this, Ali ibn Abi Talib is saying his farewell. He's given Hassan and Hussein, Zainab, Kulthum, Abu al-Fadl, the rest of his children and loved ones, his wasaya. He's reminding them of the values of Islam. He's reminding them to maintain salah, to maintain zakah, to take care of the orphans. He's reminding them to hold on to the Quran and not to abandon the Quran. He's reminding them, of course they are people who are already observing this, but this reminder is for us, for all the generations to come, that Ali ibn Abi Talib in his last will says, make sure you never neglect your salah. Make sure that you never neglect the Quran. Make sure that you never neglect any of your Islamic duties. And make sure that you take care of the orphans and you take care of those who are needy. He even made a wasiyah for his killer. He says, my killer, don't abuse him. To that extent, Ali ibn Abi Talib, on a night like this, when he drinks a little bit of the laban, which could be milk or laban, he drinks a little and he says, Hassan, take the rest for my killer. Make sure you treat him well. He's your asir, he's your captive. And if I die, do justice with him. One strike by one strike. He struck me once, you strike him once. That's all you do. You don't do anything else. Of course, Hassan is not going to do anything else. But Ali ibn Abi Talib wants to record this in history so that those who will come later on and say that we are followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib, they implement that value and they follow that life, that way and that sunnah and that teaching of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Ibn al-Hanafiyyah, one of his children, Muhammad, he says on a night like this, Ali was getting ready to leave this world. He's reading his Quran as usual. But of course, as you know, he was praying in sitting form. He can no longer stand. Ali ibn Abi Talib is now saying his last words to Zaynab, to Kulthum, to his children, to Hassan, Hussein. He's saying his farewell. He is giving them the last of words. These are the last words that they will hear from the mouth of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Ali ibn Abi Talib directs his face to the Qibla. He is now ready to leave this world. He is now ready to rejoin with his most beloved people that he had always longed for. Rasulullah, Fatima. Now, as sad as it is that he is leaving his children, as excited as he is, that now, finally, I will rejoin and I will see my beloved brother Rasulullah and my beloved wife Fatima, salamullahi alayha. آجركم الله. التفت أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام إلى أبنائه وأهل بيته ودعهم وقال: الله خليفتي عليكم وهو حسبي ونعم الوكيل. ثم قال عليه السلام: أحسن الله لكم العزاء، ألا وإني منصرف عنكم وراحل في ليلتي هذه ولاحق بحبيبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله كما وعدني. ثم أدار الإمام عينيه في أهل بيته وقال: أستودعكم الله جميعا، سددكم الله جميعا، حفظكم الله جميعا. الله خليفتي عليكم وكفى بالله خليفة. يقول الراوي: ثم قال عليه السلام: وعليكم السلام يا رسل ربي. ثم قال عليه السلام: لمثل هذا فليعمل العاملون. لمثل هذا أي للموت. لمثل هذا فليعمل العاملون. إن الله مع الذين اتقوا والذين هم محسنون. أجركم الله. عرق جبين إمامنا. أي ساعد الله قلب زينب وأم كلثوم. أي ساعد الله قلب أبناء وبنات أمير المؤمنين وهم يودعونه وهم ينظرون إليه وهو يلفظ أنفاسه الأخيرة. آجركم الله. ما زال يذكر الله كثيرا. ثم قال: أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. آجركم الله. ثم فاضت روحه الطاهرة. أي رحم الله من ينادي: وعليا وإماما ومظلوما. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى وانفصمت العروة الوثقى. قتل علي المرتضى. قتل ابن عم المصطفى. أجرك الله الله يا صاحب الزمان في هذه الليلة، آجركم الله يا مؤمنون يا مؤمنات، ولشبح للموت عينا وعدا لرجلي، ولا داوع ما دار وعلي، صاح وداعت الله ومدد ايدي، وقضت روح العزيزة وغمض العين، كأني بمولاتي زينب أبا يا أمير المؤمنين، من لنا بعدك يا علي، من لنا بعدك يا علي. زينب ستمر برحلة من المصائب بعد أمير المؤمنين من ظلم، ثم بعد ذلك ستشهد زينب المأساة العظمى في كربلاء، لما رأت أخاها على الرمضاء مقطعا بالسيوف إربا، ورأت الخيول تدوس بحوافرها على جسده الشريف، كأني بها في تلك اللحظة ناديت جداه يا رسول الله، هذا حسينك بالعراء مسلوب العمامة والرداء، كأني بها صاحت أبا يا علي، ليتك حاضر معي اليوم. يقولون لما أرادت زينب أن تودع الحسين عليه السلام في ليلة 11، أرادت أن تخرج ليلا تبحث عن جسد المولى وهو بلا رأس، الأجساد كانت كلها مقطعة بلا رؤوس، لكنها تعرف الحسين من رائحته الزكية. يقولون خرج تتعثر بالجثث الزواكي باحثة عن جسد المولى. أبيات الدعاء تقول دوريت أنا طلعت الوين دوريت، دوريت أنا طلعت الوين دورت، مطروح بالحومة لقيت، أنا قعد يتيمى وعاتبيت أبا عبد الله. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون، والعاقبة للمتقين. فرج عنا يا الله. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأجل الأكرم، وبعبيدك الأطهار نبينا وآله، وبحق مصيبتنا في هذه الليلة يا الله، فرج عن إمام زماننا فرجا عاجلا كلمح البصر أو هو أقرب من ذلك. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات، تابع بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات، إنك قاضي الحاجات مجيب الدعوات. إلهي بحق هذه الليلة أدخل على أهل القبور السرور، سيما أموات الحاضرين، أموات الخدمة الباذلين المؤسسين جميعا. اللهم ارحمهم برحمتك الواسعة، ولا تفرق بينهم وبين محمد وآله طرفة عين. اللهم اقض حوائج المحتاجين، اللهم اشف مرضى المؤمنين سيما المنظورين يا الله، بحق هذه الليلة وبمريض كربلاء زين العابدين. إلهي 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 نتوسل إليك بهذه الليالي ألا تفرق بيننا وبين محمد وآله، وأن تثبتنا على دينك، وأن لا تخرجنا من هذه الدنيا إلا وأنت راضيا عنا. اللهم إخواني الحاضرين أخواتي الحاضرات احفظهم فردا فردا وذويهم، اللهم احفظ أبنائهم، اللهم احفظهم جميعا ووفقهم سددهم، وارزقنا وإياهم حسن العاقبة يا الله. إلى شرف النبي وآله وأموات الحاضرين فردا فردا. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مع الإخلاص 3 قبلها صلوات.
أحسن الله عليكم.
أجبتم جزاكم الله خير.
وإياكم وإياكم حياكم الله.
Inshallah. Ikhwan, as far as the questions, inshallah, as usual, on the nights of Qadr, we usually postpone it for the following night so that we can give as much time as we can for the a'mal. الله يحفظكم إن شاء الله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثانيا غفر الله لكم. ثالثا على حب أمير المؤمنين بأعلى أصواتكم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إلهي العفو إلهي العفو إلهي العفو. Together to start the a'mal inshallah, so that we always, when we try to be spiritual and when we try to engage in the
اللهم بحق هذا القرآن وبحق من أرسلته به وبحق كل مؤمن مدحته فيه وبحقك عليهم فلا أحد أعرف بحقك منك. بك يا الله 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 بمحمد 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 صلواتك عليه وآله بعلي 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 عليه السلام بفاطمة 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 عليه السلام عليها السلام بالحسن 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 عليه السلام بالحسين 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 عليه السلام بعلي بن الحسين 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 عليه السلام، بمحمد بن علي، 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 بمحمد بن علي عليه السلام، بجعفر بن محمد، 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 بجعفر بن محمد عليه السلام، بموسى بن جعفر، 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 بموسى بن جعفر عليه السلام، بعلي بن موسى، 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 بعلي بن موسى عليه السلام، بمحمد بن علي، 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 بمحمد بن علي عليهما السلام، بعلي بن محمد، 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 بعلي بن محمد عليهما السلام، بالحسن بن علي، 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 بالحسن بن علي عليه السلام، بالحجة، 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 بالحجة ابن الحسن عليه السلام، اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين، وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Ask Allah for all of the hajat for dunya and akhirah, and inshallah it will be accepted and fulfilled by the will of Allah and by the honor of Muhammad and his progeny. أزور سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجاء ذخري وذخيرتي لآخرتي ودنياي الإمام الحسين بن علي عليهما السلام أصالة عني، نيابة عن إخواني الحاضرين أخواتي الحاضرات، وعن والدي ووالدي والدي وسائر المؤمنين والمؤمنات طاعة إلى الله تعالى. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وتلوت الكتاب حق تلاوته وجاهدت في الله حق جهاده وصبرت على الأذى في جنبه محتسبا حتى أتاك اليقين. أشهد أن الذين خالفوك وحاربوك والذين خذلوك والذين قتلوك ملعونون على لسان النبي الأمي وقد خاب من افترى. لعن الله الظالمين لكم من الأولين والآخرين وضاعف عليهم العذاب الأليم. أتيتك يا مولاي يا ابن رسول الله زائرا عارفا بحقك مواليا لأوليائك معاديا لأعدائك مستبصرا بالهدى الذي أنت عليه عارفا بضلالة من خالفك فاشفع لي عند ربك. السلام عليك يا حجة الله في أرضه وسمائه، صلى الله على روحك الطيب وجسدك الطاهر وعليك السلام يا مولاي ورحمة الله وبركاته. زيارة علي بن الحسين عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي ورحمة الله وبركاته. لعن الله من ظلمك ولعن الله من قتلك وضاعف عليهم العذاب الأليم. زيارة الشهداء. السلام عليكم أيها الصديقون، السلام عليكم أيها الشهداء الصابرون. أشهد أنكم جاهدتم في سبيل الله وصبرتم على الأذى في جنب الله ونصحتم لله ولرسوله حتى أتاكم اليقين. أشهد أنكم أحياء عند ربكم ترزقون، فجزاكم الله عن الإسلام وأهله أفضل جزاء المحسنين وجمع بيننا وبينكم في محل النعيم. زيارة الفقيه العالم البطل أبي الفضل العباس عليه السلام.
السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك أيها العبد الصالح المطيع لله ولرسوله. أشهد أنك قد جاهدت ونصحت وصبرت حتى أتاك اليقين. لعن الله الظالمين لكم من الأولين والآخرين وألحقهم بدرك الجحيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أحسن الله عليكم. بارك الله بكم. إخواني, the two units that we recite for Laylatul Qadr, as you know, Al-Fatiha once, 7 times Qul Huwallahu Ahad in the first rak'ah, and same thing in the second rak'ah. Fatiha 7 times Qul Huwallahu Ahad, and as soon as you complete the salah, you will do 70 times Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh.
أحسنت. والدعاء وأنتم إن شاء الله.